to the GAB Talks by the Independent Press Award. I'm your hostess, Gabby Olzak. Today, we will be chatting with Judy Kelly, author of The Attractiveness of Wisdom, winner of the 2022 Independent Press Award and the New York City Big Book Award for Religion Fiction. Judy's previous fiction works, Blessing and Curses, and That Ever Died So Young, were recipients of national and international awards. Judy teaches fiction writing at Frederick Community College and Montgomery College, along with speech and English classes. A long-distance bicyclist and runner, Judy resides in Maryland, where she loves to play piano, read, and write. Congratulations, Judy, and welcome to the GAB. We're so happy to have you.
Thank you so much, Gabby. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you.
Wonderful. So, okay, Attractiveness of Wisdom is actually your third novel, Judy. We just announced that it won awards as a religious fiction work. Some readers, though, actually categorize it as a romance. You're the author. What genre do you consider the book to be?
Well, a novel is written according to the conventions of a particular genre. So we can't just assign a genre to it. So I wrote my novel, The Attractiveness of Wisdom, according to the standards of Christian literary fiction. So I classify it as Christian literary fiction. And I also classify Blessings and Curses as the same thing. I understand, though, that many novels do have romance in them, mystery in them, conflict and intrigue and suspense. But most novels should have some element of conflict, mystery, intrigue, suspense, and maybe even a little romance. But that doesn't make it a romance just because you have those things in it. What you need to have in it are the standards that make the book a particular, under the category of a particular genre. And so again, I classify mine as Christian literary fiction. The Christian way of life must exist in the novel. I would say that it pretty much does in The Attractiveness of Wisdom.
I want to get back to the book, but in line with what we're just discussing, when you are writing a novel, Judy, what is the most important elements when you're writing?
It's got to be character. I have to have a character who is flawed and who has many, many layers. A character with one characteristic is not a really good character for me. So I want characters to be like people, like someone like you and I are talking. I want my readers to feel that character, to understand that character, to get to know that character, to can replace that character with some of their circumstances, and so have a relationship and a great understanding with the character. I think it's important for that the character be the important part, because my setting is part of my character. The dialogue, the plot is certainly part of the character. The dialogue expresses who the character is and what the character's desires are. And the places where he or she, the setting, the places that are described in the book are part of the character, so that the reader can get a better understanding of who that character is and how they can relate to the character. The plot, we certainly want a character that can go through a plot line, and so we can see the changes and we can see the important things and meaningful things of the character, and the things that the character, the desires of the character, the things that mean something to the character. So to me, it's the character is the essence of the story. You can have a good plot and a wonderful plot line,
but you have to connect with your protagonist, which we certainly do. And I want to get back to your main protagonist a little bit later. But first, I want to learn a little bit more about you, and I want to share some interesting things that I discovered. So you, Judy, were actually an elementary school teacher and a high school teacher. And in fact, your first book, I didn't get a chance to say goodbye, was actually a children's book. I think a lot of people might be surprised by that. And it was inspired by your fourth and fifth graders. Yes. So what motivated you to then take the leap to fiction novels?
Well, I didn't know after I did that. Let me share a little bit about how the children's book came about, if it's okay.
Please do.
I had taken on a job, a school system, and I was a teacher of learning disabilities. And I have had a class of fourth and fifth graders. At that time, the clinical method was being used, and that is they were developing thinking skills through playing board games and things like that. So being new, I didn't understand how they could learn to read, through playing board games. So I decided that we're going to read and write and do things that we're supposed to do in that classroom. And so I tried to take those board games away from them. And I was glad I came up with my life, because they were bound and determined to fight against me. So I'm pulling one way, they're pulling another way. They wanted those board games. So finally, I declared myself to be the teacher in the class, and they didn't give in. So I made them help me put them away and walk me down to the book room to get books. But being new, it didn't dawn on me that they may not be able to read those books. And so when I started having them to read, I realized that they could not read, even though they were on fourth and fifth grade level, they couldn't read on the fourth and fifth grade level. So I decided to go home and create stories on my own. I don't know what made me do that, but I did. And I used the vocabulary list as a vocabulary list for, at that time, I don't know if it's still going on now, for each grade level. And so I had the vocabulary words in the stories as best I could. So we started in the beginning, right after we got the books and everything, well, the papers rather, and then moved to the end of the year. It was like one long story that I kept adding on to and adding on to. So one day I came into near the end of the school year, I guess the second half of the school year, I came into the classroom and I thought they were sitting around the table, and I thought, how did they get in here? I know that I locked the door last night when I left. And I thought, well, what are they talking about? And they were like in an argument. So I put my things down and I sat down at the table and I listened. And I heard one student say to all the others around the table, well, I don't think he's going to do that. What would make you think he would do something like that? He hasn't done anything like that before. And my mouth dropped. They had learned to read. They had learned to read critical. They were using thinking skills, and I was surprised. I had put so much energy in creating stories that I forgot to see how well they were doing with the stories. And so that story that I wrote, it was kind of meaningful because it opened my eyes to better teaching, and it was a way for them to learn to read. And it was a breakthrough for, I think, all of us. So the story meant a lot to me. And I thought, well, maybe I don't want to get it published. Maybe I don't want to be, I don't know, a children's author anyway.
But didn't the children suggest to you that it could actually be published?
Yes, they did.
That's great. And, children are brutally honest. So it must have been very well written, Judy.
Well, they said that the book sounded like real stories that you'd find in real bookstores.
That's quite a compliment. So how much time passed between I didn't get to say a chance to say goodbye until you began your first novel?
Few years did, because what I did was I did something that many people don't do anymore. I think I went to school. I took classes and places to help me find out about writing and why you write. I think sometimes I read books and I'm not sure why the person wrote it. So I wanted people to understand that I have a purpose here. I want to share that purpose with you. And so I went to conferences, writing places and writing centers, and learned to write. Now I wrote That Ever Died So Young. And by that time now I had moved on to teaching at a college. My college students, most of them had read the book and asked me if I knew that.
Was it required reading, or did they just take it upon themselves?
I told them it was.
Good for you. Good for you. So you said your writing has a purpose. What do you consider the purpose of the attractiveness of wisdom, or the overall theme of it?
I'm glad you asked me about themes, because one of the things that the college students told me was that That Ever Died So Young had a list of themes in it, and they asked me if I knew that the book had those themes. Honestly, I did not. And
that's so interesting. Okay.
But I didn't tell them no. I just said, well, what do you think the themes are?
That's the way to do it. Yep.
and they came up with a list of 15 things.
Wow.
So in honor of them today, I have my list of themes.
Oh my
already
goodness.
written and
Well,
ready.
how about we narrow it down a little bit and you tell us what, as the author, what is the most critical theme, the most important theme for the attractiveness of wisdom?
Well, I don't have quite 15. I didn't go-
That's good.
but I do have a few that I think are that we see throughout the story. I think there's a big family theme in there. To me, even though the parents may be divorced and they may even have other spouses, there is still a family there because the children who came from the two original people, that still makes a family. It's a different kind of family,
Right.
but it should make a family. And I see very often that people get upset. My spouse did this to me, so I'm going to get even with them. And the children have to suffer all of that and see all of that going on. And I don't think it's fair to them because that leads them down a different road than they may have chosen for themselves earlier had they not had to go through the mom and dad fighting like that. And I think in my novel, I wanted people to see the relationship between these two people who are no longer together, that there is still a family there. And we see Hamilton trying to keep that.
Your main protagonist, Hamilton.
Yes, trying to keep that, exactly, trying to keep that family together. There's another theme in there where we carry things that are negative things that in our childhood, early childhood, on into our adult life. We act on that. And so we see that in Holly Ann, the one that for myself, if I don't like who I am the one to make the change. And so we saw that in Hamilton, who made a change in himself and love others no matter who they are. And we saw that in Marilyn and Emma in the story. Love one another and take care of each other. That's what I do. That's something that I strongly believe in.
I felt that was a main theme also in the attractiveness of wisdom. And in fact, Hamilton, your main protagonist, he has, I don't know, I saw three really significant relationships.
Yes,
Which relationship, and that is a big theme in the book, is relationships. Which one do you consider, Judy, to be the most important relationship in the book, and why?
Well, I think they're all three were different stages where Hamilton is. So it's different. It's difficult for me to say which one is the most important because we had Holly Ann, his ex-wife, who was the first one to tell him that he had a problem. And then we had Marilyn to come in and he looked at her and he saw that wasn't the kind of style of life he wanted to have. And then he saw Franny, who needed his help. And so he gave her his help. And usually when we help someone else, we're helping ourselves in the process. And in the end, we saw Emma. So at the end of his change, then this was the reward. But the reward didn't turn out for him to be the kind of reward he wanted. But it was a reward because then he can move on to his next stage in life with that. So with each of the women characters, he grew a little and he made a change. So
they were all equally important in different stages in his life.
Yeah.
So you spoke earlier, Judy, about the importance of the character development and how it's important for them to be real people. And I agree with that. I think that's what makes your story so compelling. Hamilton, your main protagonist, why do you think he's so relatable? And what do you think that we can learn from him?
I think because he's flawed. We're all flawed if we're good Christians, and we understand that. We all know that we have flaws, and we are forever trying to correct those flaws to become better people. I kind of patterned him after me because years ago I had a problem with self-esteem. I didn't feel that I was a worthy person. I had no value. And I went about trying to improve myself, to see my value, to love myself, because I realized that if I didn't love myself, no one else would love me. People see who you, the way you treat yourself, and they treat you that same way.
Yes.
So I didn't quite like what I was getting back. And I don't know what I expected, but I wasn't getting back what I wanted. So I made some changes in my life. So Hamilton it comes from that change that I made. And at first I was, when I had my notes, it's like a step-by-step process. And I kept thinking, no, I don't really want to put the step-by-step process in the novel like that. I
Mhm.
want it to come across as a story. So it was a little difficult for me to manage that. But I think that when they see him on the page, they have a feeling that he can be like, they can be like he is. I had a woman from Argentina to read the book, and she said that she really related to him. And I'm thinking, from Argentina? And yes, because he stirred up some memories in her early youth. And so she related to him in that way. So I think, we see him trying. We see him also as a family man. I think that I wanted that to be a strong theme in the book. And I wanted people to see that he's a loving father. He cares so much for his children. So I think people see that about him. And then he's a professional. And so, with all of the problems that he's had, he pushed forward and he made something of himself. He didn't seem to get along very well with his father in particular, but that didn't stop him from having a life of his own and giving that to his children, keeping in contact with his children all the time. I think that reading the book, you see all of that in the man. And I think to myself, well, you can't help but love him. Even I love him. I'm the one who wrote it.
No, that is true. He definitely is relatable as well as likable. So, Judy, I understand that you're certified in Christian healing.
Yes.
What influence does that have on your writing and character development?
Well, Hamilton is a good example. In my prior story, the same thing. Healing is physical healing, emotional and mental healing. So decided years ago, before I got into Christian healing, though, that I didn't want to be the kind of person I was. But Christian healing is that helping a person change from something that they don't like about themselves into making them something more.
Which is exactly what Hamilton did.
Yes,
What he strives to do. Let me ask you another question about the book. What is the significance, or does the Attractiveness of Wisdom, the title, have any symbolic meaning?
Well, in the Bible, wisdom is a lady. She's described as a she or her. So she's a female. So Hamilton's change came from his interactions with these three women. And so one made him see his problems, the other helped him make a change, and the other one saw through another one what he didn't want to be. So these women just helped him go from one place in his life to another place in his life. And even where the story ends in one place, but that does not mean that he doesn't have more work to do.
Don't we all? We always have work to do.
Yes.
That's definitely something that could be learned from the book. So out of the three novels that you've penned, which one was your favorite to write, Judy?
I think it has to be Blessings and Curses.
Why so?
Because it was a dark story, very, very dark story. And it came from, I guess I'm glad I teach, because this came from my high school students.
Oh, wow. Your students have really inspired you through the years. That's wonderful.
I've been very close to my students, yeah. I had a group of students who were from different countries. They were made to feel like they didn't belong here and they were no good, and just a lot of negative. And so my main character, who was a woman, embodied all of the things that these students were told. And so there were when I had to write the dark places, I didn't quite know how I would do that. I had not been into anything that bad myself. And so I thought about them. I thought about all of the things that they said, all of the hatred they expressed, all of the discontent, all of the ugliness that they felt. And I wrote the things that were really, really bad. I wrote it with them in my head. And so when I read it over again, because I didn't think I could do it, when I read it over again, I gave it to my writing group. When I gave them the first version, they said, no, we can't take this. You have to do better. So that's when I sat down to keep the students in my head and keep listening to what they were saying as I was writing. And so when I took it back to my group, they thought, this is great. You've done it.
Wow.
And I read it again myself, and I thought, I don't know how people can carry this kind of ugliness, and what do we expect from people when we pour this much ugliness out on them? Do we expect them to be good people through all of that? It's very difficult for people to do. I thought I had a new respect for my students, and that was staying in high school, and I spent a lot of time beating it into their heads that they were going not only finish high school, but they're going to go on to college as well. So
Have you heard from any of those students? Did they in fact go on to college?
many of them, we're Facebook friends. Not only have they gone to college, but they've done really wonderful jobs, gotten really wonderful jobs in the process. A couple now own their own companies. One of my students, I think, is a millionaire by now.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Lucky him or her. That's great. So Judy, can our listeners expect another novel in the near future?
Yes, I've started one, but I've had to stop. It's time to grade paper sometimes. And
You're busy. Yeah.
I don't. I'm not sure if I want what I have so far to be the novel. So I'm going to make some changes in it. I don't know when it's going to come out, but I think in the next couple of weeks I'll start it again, see what comes of it. So,
I don't want to spoil anything, but I think I read something about it. There's something quite unique about the book that you're working on. What is it?
I don't know.
I think I read, you said that it had a little bit of all of the elements of the past 3 books that you've written.
Oh, yes, the characters, yes, are all going to come back.
Oh, that's interesting. That's always fun. It's
Yeah.
not a sequel though, is that right?
No, it's not going to be a sequel. But all the characters in the last 2 books are going to, actually all 3 books are going to come together in this 4th book.
See, that's really interesting, and that's very unique, and I'm sure that your readers will look forward to seeing that. So you have to grade those papers and get working on that.
Yes, I will.
And you'll let us know. So Judy, finally, how can our listeners find out more about your work?
So I'm on www.judycar.com, www.judycar.com. That's my website. I used to call it my blog, but I made it a website now.
Good. Excellent. And can our listeners purchase your books through that as well?
Yes, through there, and go on and read some of the blogs that I have. I think they're very interesting and see what you think, and they can leave me messages. I would enjoy that.
Oh, we all certainly will. Well, Judy, thank you so much for joining us today. It was so interesting speaking with you, and we're looking forward to your next book. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Gabby, for having me. It's been my pleasure.
Thank you. So next podcast, listeners, we will speak with Michael Dow, author of Nurse Florence, I'm Having Trouble Sleeping. This is Gabby Olzak of the GAB Talks. Until next time, keep on reading.